Imagine the quiet hum of a city at night, the distant sirens, the murmur of traffic, the comforting glow of streetlights filtering through your window. You lock your door, pull the curtains, and settle into the sanctuary of your home, believing you are safe. It is a universal feeling, that sense of security within your own four walls, a fundamental human need that we often take for granted. But what if that feeling of safety was an illusion, a fragile construct easily shattered? What if, just beyond your walls, a shadow was stretching, growing longer with each passing night, threatening to consume the very peace you cherished? What if the city you loved, the familiar streets you walked every day, suddenly became a labyrinth of fear, each corner holding a potential threat, each passing stranger a source of chilling, undeniable suspicion? This is not a story from a distant land or a forgotten era, whispered only in hushed tones. This is a story from the very heart of America, from a city known globally for its vibrant spirit, its architectural marvels, its deep dish pizza, and its unwavering resilience, Chicago. But in the late 1990s and early 2000s, a different kind of shadow, cold and malevolent, fell over the Windy City, particularly over its south and west sides. It was not a natural disaster, nor a surge in gang violence. Though those struggles were tragically ever present, this was something far more insidious, far more personal, a terror that crept into homes and hearts. It was the chilling, dawning realization that a predator walked among them, unseen, unheard, leaving a trail of unspeakable horror. This was not a random act of violence. This was a calculated, terrifying pattern that targeted the most vulnerable, stripping away not just lives, but the very fabric of trust and community, leaving behind a pervasive, suffocating dread. The victims were almost always women, often marginalized, often struggling with addiction, poverty, or homelessness. Their lives already precarious, their voices often unheard. They were mothers, daughters, sisters, friends, each with a unique story, a family who loved them, a future that was brutally stolen. Their disappearances were initially isolated incidents, tragic but seemingly unconnected, dismissed by some as unfortunate consequences of their circumstances. Then, the bodies began to surface, discarded in vacant lots, hidden in overgrown alleyways, abandoned buildings, in places where life had long receded, leaving only decay and forgotten dreams. Each discovery sent a fresh wave of ice through the community, a collective gasp of horror. And with each discovery, a horrifying, undeniable pattern emerged, a signature of pure, unadulterated malice, strangulation, a brutal, intimate act of violence that left no doubt about the killer's intent, a chilling message delivered with each life extinguished. The fear was palpable, a thick, suffocating blanket that descended with the setting sun. It was not just the fear of being next, it was the fear of the unknown, the invisible enemy that could be anyone, anywhere. Who was doing this? Why were these women, these mothers and daughters, being targeted with such viciousness? The police were working tirelessly, but leads were scarce. The killer a phantom, leaving little behind, a ghost in the urban landscape. The media, at first, seemed slow to grasp the magnitude of the terror, focusing on other city dramas, other headlines. But as the body count climbed, as the grim discoveries became a relentless, agonizing drumbeat, the headlines screamed, their words echoing the community's growing despair. Another woman found. Southside Strangler strikes again. The name Chicago Strangler began to whisper through the streets, a terrifying moniker for a phantom menace that stole sleep and shattered trust, turning every shadow into a potential threat, every unfamiliar sound into a harbinger of doom. Mothers warned their daughters, their voices tight with a fear they tried desperately to hide, their eyes scanning the streets with a new, desperate vigilance. Friends walked each other home, clutching their purses tighter, looking over their shoulders with a desperate, almost frantic urgency. The vibrant street life that once defined these neighborhoods began to dim after dark, replaced by an eerie quiet, a self-imposed curfew born of terror. Every stranger became a suspect. Every unfamiliar car a source of dread, every glance from a passerby scrutinized for hidden malice. The emotional toll was immense, a collective trauma that seeped into the very foundations of daily life. Trust, once a given, became a luxury. The simple act of walking alone at night, once a freedom, transformed into an act of profound courage or perhaps recklessness. The community, already facing systemic challenges, now bore the additional burden of an unseen enemy, a silent siege on their sense of security and peace. For years, the Chicago Police Department found themselves locked in a frustrating, relentless battle against an elusive foe. Detectives worked around the clock, piecing together fragmented clues, interviewing countless individuals, and sifting through mountains of evidence. Yet the killer remained a ghost. The nature of the crimes, often targeting individuals with transient lifestyles, made traditional investigative methods incredibly difficult. Witnesses were scarce or their accounts unreliable. The crime scenes, often in abandoned or neglected areas, yielded little forensic evidence that could immediately identify a suspect. Each new victim added to the growing list of cold cases, a stark reminder of the killer's continued freedom and the department's struggle to bring him to justice. The sheer volume of cases, spread across different districts and over several years, presented a logistical nightmare, making it challenging to connect the dots and identify a single overarching pattern beyond the method of killing. The pressure mounted from the public, from the media, and from within the department itself, as families of the victims cried out for answers, for closure, for an end to the terror that gripped their city. As the 2000s progressed, the act of killing seemed to subside, but the shadow they cast remained. The cases, though officially cold, never truly left the minds of the detectives who worked them, nor the hearts of the families who grieved. For years, the names of the victims were whispered in hushed tones, their stories a tragic part of Chicago's recent history. The hope for justice dwindled with each passing month, each passing year. Families were left with unanswered questions, with the agonizing knowledge that the person responsible for their loved one's brutal death walked free. The psychological scars on the community ran deep, a constant reminder of the vulnerability that had been so cruelly exposed. It was a period of quiet suffering, a time when the city tried to heal, but could never truly forget the terror that had once stalked its streets. However, the march of scientific progress, particularly in the field of forensic science, offered a glimmer of hope where none had existed before. As the second decade of the 2000s began, advancements in DNA technology revolutionized cold case investigations. What was once considered insufficient evidence could now yield crucial insights. Tiny, almost imperceptible traces of biological material, previously overlooked or unanalyzable, could now be processed with incredible precision, creating a unique genetic fingerprint. This new frontier in forensics allowed law enforcement agencies across the country to revisit unsolved crimes, breathing new life into cases that had long been dormant. In Chicago, this meant a renewed focus on the unsolved strangulations. Detectives, working with forensic scientists, began systematically re-examining evidence from the old cases, meticulously searching for any biological material that could be retested using these cutting-edge techniques. It was a painstaking process, requiring dedication, patience, and an unwavering belief that justice, though delayed, was not necessarily denied. The breakthrough came, as it often does in such cases, through a combination of diligent police work and the power of modern science. In the mid-2000s teens, a suspect emerged. Through the meticulous re-examination of evidence, DNA from multiple crime scenes was linked, not just to each other, but eventually to a single individual. This was the critical piece of the puzzle that had been missing for so long. The Phantom had a name. The details of the arrest were a culmination of years of frustration and relentless pursuit. When the news finally broke, it sent shockwaves through the city, a mixture of relief, anger, and a profound sense of validation for the victims' families. The man identified as the alleged Chicago Strangler was a local resident, someone who had lived among the very communities he terrorized, a chilling reminder of how close evil can reside. The identification brought a measure of closure, but also opened new wounds, forcing the community to confront the reality of the monster in their midst. The legal proceedings that followed were long and complex, bringing to light the full extent of the horror that had unfolded over those dark years. For the families of the victims, it was an agonizing process, forcing them to relive their deepest pain, but also offering the possibility of accountability. The story of the Chicago Strangler serves as a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities that exist within our society, particularly for those on the margins. It highlighted the critical importance of listening to and protecting the most vulnerable, ensuring that no life is deemed less valuable or less worthy of protection. The legacy of these crimes also stirred greater collaboration between law enforcement agencies, a renewed commitment to cold case investigations, and an increased awareness of the need for comprehensive support systems for individuals struggling with addiction and homelessness. While the terror of the Chicago Strangler eventually subsided with the apprehension of a suspect, the memory of those dark years and the lives so cruelly taken remains a somber chapter in the city's history. It is a testament to the enduring strength and resilience of the communities that endured this nightmare, and a powerful call to remember those who were lost, ensuring their stories are never forgotten. The quiet hum of the city at night has returned, the distant sirens and the comforting glow of streetlights once again a familiar backdrop. But for many, the illusion of absolute safety has been forever altered. The shadow that stretched across Chicago in those years serves as a powerful, chilling reminder that even in the most vibrant and resilient of cities, vigilance is paramount, and the fight for justice for every life is an ongoing endeavor. It is a story that reminds us to look beyond the surface, to listen to the unheard, and to never take for granted the peace within our own four walls.